cheering him on. And both of these guys, I've been seeing them, they're working when they're back there. They are not taking this time to just relax. They are studying how to tackle this match.
Well, there's a lot at stake, so.
just a little bit. You know, just a match of Hearthstone, potentially worth $250,000 to first place. It's not the biggest deal.
All right, right into the first game. Che0nsu queuing up with the Zoo Warlock up against Cydonia's Tempo Mage.
Yeah, and the Cydonia Tempo Mage, very much taking sort of the Pavel influence from it as well, playing a little bit more of the top end, but something he has cut from this is the Faceless Summoner that we saw Pavel use earlier today. Instead, he's rolled with Water Elementals, he's got Flame Strike double, Firelance Portal. It's more of a scaling build, but not quite the same commitment that Pavel had.
Yeah, it's interesting. In opening week, Cydonia actually did have the Faceless Summoners in this build, and then he's decided to cut them as he's just kind of adjusted to the tournament meta, seeing that people are starting to go a little bit faster and a little bit less control in the lineups. And I think it's a very good change, and it should help him out in this matchup in particular.
Yeah, and speaking of fast, Che0nsu's deck, he's playing the Zoo Warlock with a very heavy focus on the discard aspect. 2 copies of Darkshire Librarian to try to pitch those Silverware Golems away. Even a copy of Demon Fire in here to accent the early demons.
Yeah, it's going to be a quick one, that's for sure. Cydonia's got a crazy start, though. He's got the Mana Worm, and he has the missiles and the Flame Waker, and even the coin is just super powerful as a Tempo Mage deck because it synergizes with so many of your cards.
Yeah, buffing up Mana Worm, of course, unleashing Flame Wakes.
Flame Wakes.
Because it's a spell here, and Che0nsu going with Voidwalker first, picks up Flame Imp, and now will kind of begin the assault, but I think very, very cleverly deciding to kind of cut into the Mana Worm damage here a little bit. Voidwalker worth a lot less than the Mana Worm is.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes it so the Mana Worm can't trade up as easily into the Voidwalker if it were to get buffed by 2 spells from Cydonia's side, or
even on the trade here, just the Possessed Villager returning the job here.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Cydonia taking a little bit of a passive turn here, just kind of accumulating resources in his hand, waiting for that key moment to strike with a big Flame Waker turn, where he's going to play Flame Waker and just a bunch of spells to swing the board state in his favor. And this is what you don't want to see when you're setting up for that, is that Imp Gang boss. That just totally destroys all of your Flame Waker plans. It is the ultimate answer to Tempo Mage in the Zoo Warlock deck.
And this is, to me, one of the reasons that Zoo Warlock oftentimes can be favored in this matchup, is when they have a strong opener into Imp Gang boss to prevent things like Flame Waker from happening, to prevent Arcane Missiles from sweeping up these board positions. You look at this board state, Cydonia is going to have trouble getting back on the board.
Yeah, he's going to have to take suboptimal turns this turn, and then Che0nsu's going to try and protect the Imp Gang boss to continue forcing Cydonia to take suboptimal turns throughout the rest of the game to play around those missiles, generating tons of imps.
And that's kind of just been the game plan for Che0nsu almost the entire match so far, is to just create awkward turns for Cydonia. Here it's a little bit easier for him just because he had a strong curve, but it's been kind of a focus of his decks.
I think honestly, as Cydonia here, you just dump one of the Flame Wakers onto the field. If Che0nsu cannot answer this, you're going to generate enough missiles that you can just get the job done regardless of the fact that that's an Imp Gang boss.
And it's a scary proposition.
Hey, you know what? Che0nsu says, you play a Flame Waker, I raise you an Imp Gang boss.
Yeah. Cydonia's got to pair
He
himself,
could go for the juggle, though. He has the tapped this turn. If he could find a buff card such as Direwolf Alpha, Abusive Sergeant off the tap, and if he whiffs on the tap, he could play the Knife Juggler, and then Che0nsu has a 50-50 to remove the Flame Waker. So there's some consideration for that, but he ends up just going with the Imp Gang boss.
Yeah, this is a really interesting play too. Once again, cutting into the Flame Waker, trying to just reduce the amount of room that Cydonia has to work with on his minion side. And this isn't really even that risky of a play for Che0nsu in this spot because he's got that second Imp Gang boss. Still very difficult for Cydonia to have a big swing turn here, given that they'll just be spawning extra imps.
Well, that is a lot of missiles. How many missiles is that exactly? Each spell generates 2 additionals.
8.
Yeah.
11. I mean, he's got 11 missiles. And he won't have hero power if that happens, but 11 missiles is a lot of missiles. And double Flame Waker, you know, a pair of Imp Gang Boss is good. We're gonna find out if a pair of a pair of Flame Wakers can be even better. And here's the thing, if the board gets filled and the Imp Gang bosses start taking damage, they won't spawn additional imps.
Yeah, pretty fortunate there that Cydonia was actually able to fill the board completely with the Flame Waker missiles and discount one imp generation.
Reasonable shots. But
not a full clear.
Yeah, still not a terrible position for Che0nsu in this spot, but now that the second Flame Waker is hit and it's fresh, Cydonia knows there's no buff in hand. Che0nsu would have killed the Flame Waker that turn.
Exactly.
The onus is on Che0nsu to answer this second Flame Waker.
He needs to find something. He needs either a Doom Guard, a Soul Fire, any sort of buff, any sort of removal here could potentially get the job done, swing him right back into this game. Protecting the Sorcerer's Apprentice here by taking that trade with the Flame Waker a little bit. Trying to just get max value out of it.
Oh, that's the perfect draw for Che0nsu, though.
The entire board.
And this is the stage of the game where Zoo Warlock can really take advantage of these early struggles, is you get into a resource battle, the resource battle goes even, and you get to start life tapping.
Yeah, exactly. That's where Zoo really strives, is when both players are out of cards, because Zoo is never really out of cards. Life
Till
tap.
they're just dead.
Yeah, once they're out of life, they're out of cards, because then they can't even tap anymore. Ice Barrier, not what Cydonia was looking for off the Babbling Book, hoping to try and get, you know, any sort of decent value spell to keep his hand going, keep the resources flowing, but forced here just to develop a Water Elemental into a Knife Juggler.
That's a terrible draw for Che0nsu at this point.
Ooh, is it?
Well, you know, yes and no. He would have liked to just draw the Doom Guard first.
Yeah, exactly.
But his next turn is very strong.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the turn where he doesn't really have a strong way to just trade up into anything, so he has to take what he can get and go from there. The Water Elemental going to be doing some massive work here. But again, the pressure really on Cydonia here, just simply from the card battle standpoint. He doesn't have a way to launch an assault in this position, and so he's still fighting for board. The Water Elementals, I think, are going to really help this because they just have a lot of health, but it's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and they can freeze the Doom Guard and slow it down a little bit, but yeah, you're right. Che0nsu's got the tempo, so he's going to be the one that's able to go face. And that Malchezaar's Imp is huge. He gets to draw an additional card here.
And get a 1/3.
And get a 1/3.
And that's not just a 1/3. That's a fairly priority 1/3 because this will make Darkshire Librarians draw extra cards. It returns from Soulfires. Cydonia's looking at that Malchezaar's Imp and thinking that might be what I need to take care of. That's going to cause him to take more damage if that's the case.
Yeah, can he afford to take care of it? He takes an additional 2 damage, and really that's it. So I think it is worth killing over one of the Silverware Golems, but it's kind of close. Having the Ice Barrier honestly helps, though. He's got a lot of life to play with. Technically speaking, Cydonia is pretty much still at 30 life.
Yeah, and the Ragnaros draw here actually a big deal as well, because with the Ice Barrier, he has plenty of time, but he needed to find a way to make up that advantage. That Ragnaros will give him a way to kind of inevitably make up that disadvantage.
Yeah, if the Ragnaros gets ignored and Che0nsu continues going face, then that's basically Cydonia is just selling some of his life for board control at that point, which is what he wants.
8 turns in and we're still fighting for board with Zoo versus Tempo Mage.
That's always how it goes with Zoo, right?
And that's a really awkward draw if you're in Che0nsu's spot, because that's not just, here's the deal. To Che0nsu, that's a secret. He doesn't know it's Ice Barrier. That came from Babbling Book. Yeah. There are no secrets naturally in Cydonia's build. He's got to navigate piece by piece to figure out what this is.
Yeah, he took a bit of a gamble there, hoping it wasn't Mirror Entity, and he had some information to work with, because the secret wasn't played immediately after the Babbling Book, so you automatically can assume it's most likely a low priority secret for Cydonia, whereas Mirror Entity would have been a high priority secret because it has so much value against a deck that runs all minions.
And the fact that Cydonia was able to fight for the board so hard has left Che0nsu trying to get past the development stage, and suddenly Cydonia is at 27 life and a Ragnaros is hitting the board.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for Che0nsu, though.
Yeah, that was the best minion.
Ooh.
He would have preferred obviously getting hit in the face, I guess, but that's a pretty big offensive there.
I don't know if he would. Face cost him 4 cards long term.
How does he have a long enough term to ever life tap 4 times?
How he might. I think it comes down to a lot on this Dark Peddler, where now there's options to clear the Ragnaros fairly easily if he wants. You know, he has really no read on the last card in Cydonia's hand, I think, other than that it's not Flame Strike.
Yeah, it's only been there the one turn, so it is very possible for Che0nsu to be able to clear the Rag.
And he's actually just going to push, so I think you're right. I think he would have much rather had it gone face in that position.
Yeah, Soulfire's off the Water Elemental here, I guess, to try and make sure his Doomguard can't be taken care of. Try and keep as many minions on the board, be as aggressive as possible. Realizes that Ragnaros is kind of a time crunch for him, so he doesn't have enough time to empty his hand first, then Soulfire. He needs to make it happen right now.
And Cydonia he's eyeing the Azure Drake prior to the Arcane Intellect here. I'm not sure which is actually more favorable here. I mean, even if he hit a Flame Strike or a Firelance Portal, he doesn't have the mana to cast it this turn. So getting the 4/4 on board very important in this spot. And those are weak draws.
Yeah, you can't utilize the Babbling Book card now, but I guess you just get it out there. The missiles is pretty unlikely to clear something. Frost Nova's huge. That could buy him an additional turn of Rag just killing something.
Is that another Doomguard? Oh, that is huge. Che0nsu, that's lethal. Unreal draw for Che0nsu. What on earth? That is the only card in the deck alone that won him the game this turn.
And he was running out of time really quick.
Yes.
That Frost Nova was about to come down. That Rag was going to keep getting additional shots. Cydonia was going to dig closer to his big swing cards like Flame Strike, so.
Very timely pickup.